Welcome to another episode of K Life Rundown. Today I'm going to talk about two most serious social issues in Korea. Korea's historically low birth rate and over-centralization in the Seoul capital area. In 2024, Korea's total fertility rate was 0.75 children per woman. That is not just low, it is one of the lowest in the world and nearly unprecedented in modern history. Back in 2018, South Korea's fertility rate dropped below 1.0 for the first time. Since then, the numbers have continued to fall, years after year. The small uptick to 0.75 in 2024 has led some experts to say that Korea might be entering a turning point, a possible rebound after years of decline, but it is still too early to celebrate. So when did Korea really enter this low birth rate era? It actually goes back to the period of rapid industrialization. In the 1980s, Korea was experiencing explosive economic growth, and that is also when the country's fertility rate dropped below 2.0 for the first time, meaning fewer than 2 children per woman. That was the beginning of a long-term decline. The major factor that drives this low birth rate trend is extreme population concentration in the Seoul metropolitan area. Over half of Korea's population lives in just 11% of the country's land, mostly around Seoul. This level of urban density has driven up housing prices, intensified competition, and made starting a family in Seoul feel almost impossible for many young people. Another key reason for Korea's low fertility rate is that people are getting married later and later, or sometimes not at all. In 2024, the average age of first marriage was 33.9 for men and 31.6 for women. That is a clear sign of how much things have changed. This delay is often linked to the job insecurity, long working hours, and the high cost of housing, especially in big cities like Seoul. For many Koreans, marriage and starting a family just feel out of reach, out of reality. Now, to be fair, population centralization around major cities happens in many countries. But in Korea, it is a whole different level. The obsession with Seoul doesn't start in their adulthood. It begins when you are teenagers. There is actually a popular term among Korean students, which is in Seoul. It literally means into Seoul, and it refers to getting into a university that is located in Seoul. It is a huge deal for Korean students. Even though hundreds of thousands of Korean students take the Korean SAT every year, only a small fraction can make it into a Seoul-based university. So the competition is really brutal. And when it comes to the top-tier schools, like Seoul National University, Yonsei University, and Korea University, if you are into Korean higher education, you have probably heard of those names. Getting into those schools is no joke. And I am not criticizing people for wanting to move to Seoul. Not at all. I mean, I studied at a university in Seoul myself too, and I was born in the countryside, and honestly, while I was growing up, living in Seoul was my dream too. It is a beautiful city. The Han River, Yeouido Park, Gyeongbokgung Palace, there are just so many amazing places to visit and see. And of course, it is so natural that many people want to go there and live there. That is totally natural. But here is the thing. Over time, this has created a subtle but powerful image of Seoul. The Seoul is where the cool and successful, ambitious people go, while the rest of the country is somehow less fancy place to live. It is part of why young people do not want to settle down in non-Seoul area, which makes it even harder to reverse the population decline outside the capital region of South Korea. In Korea, everything seems to point to Seoul. The best city, Seoul. The most attractive city, Seoul. Where are the top universities? Seoul. Where can I find the high-paying jobs? Seoul. According to a recent report from a data research company, 8 out of every 10 major Korean companies have their headquarters in the Seoul capital area. That includes Seoul, Incheon, and Gyeonggi province. So basically, the vast majority of South Korea's top 500 companies are clustered in this one already crowded capital area. Meanwhile, other parts of Korea like Sejong, North Chungcheong province, North Jeolla, Gangwon, and Jeju each makes up less than 1% of headquarter locations. Even the so-called industrial heart of Korea, the Busan, Ulsan, and South Gyeongsang province, known as Buulgyeong in Korea, only accounts for about 10%. Even in Busan, Korea's second largest city, the outflow of young people is getting worse every year. Many of these young adults say the same thing. They say that if they could have found the good job in Busan, they wouldn't have moved to Seoul. It's very heartbreaking. These are not people looking for adventure or chasing the big city lights. They just want opportunities. And unfortunately, most of good opportunities are still concentrated in the capital area. If the major cities like Busan cannot retain their young talent, what does that say about the rest of the country? According to the 2023 data released by National Health Insurance Service, out of around 166,000 doctors nationwide, more than 46,000, which is 28.1%, are working in Seoul alone. Now, if you include the entire capital area, Incheon and Gyeonggi province, nearly 45% of all doctors in Korea are based in the capital area. Why is that? Because hospitals and pharmacies are also clustered in this capital area. That is really major imbalance. In fact, when you look at the number of doctors for 100,000 people, Seoul is on the top of the list with 479 doctors, more than twice the number from provinces like North Gyeongsang, which is 215, South Chungcheong, 230, North Chungcheong, 236. Now it is no wonder that it is easier to get a specialist appointment in Seoul than in the countryside. The medical system is just as centralized as the corporate world in Korea. One of my closest friends lives with chronic kidney disease. He has to take prescribed medication regularly. But there is a problem. He lives in Yeosu, a city in the southern part of Korea, and there is no specialist available in his area. So every 2 months, he has to travel all the way up to Seoul just to see a doctor and get his prescription refilled. And that is not just about his story. We are hearing more and more heartbreaking cases from the countryside of Korea. Emergency patients cannot get timely treatment simply because there are no nearby doctors or facilities equipped to help them. The healthcare gap is not just about statistics anymore. It is becoming something people feel in their daily life, something that causes real pain, real inconvenience, and sometimes real tragedy. So given these conditions, it is so natural for young people to want to live in the capital area. And over time, this trend has led to an extreme centralization of opportunity, and even for healthcare too. So if all the good schools, good jobs, and good lives are in one place, how can you blame people for living anywhere else? One of the biggest consequences of this Seoul-centered system is the housing crisis. Accommodation costs in the capital area have skyrocketed, and that makes it nearly impossible for young couples to start a life together in Seoul. And here's where Korean culture kicks in. Unlike many Western countries, having a child before marriage is still considered a big social taboo in Korea. So if you want to have a kid, you usually need to get married first. But marriage itself comes with a long checklist. You need to have a stable job, a place to live, usually an apartment, and the feeling that you are ready. And in Korea, apartments are not just about housing. They are a minimum standard for starting a family. Here's the problem. In Seoul and the surrounding area, getting both a decent job and affording an apartment on your own, that becomes almost impossible for many young Koreans. Nowadays, unless your parents help out financially, marriage in Seoul feels like a dream out of reach. That's why more and more people are saying that marriage is becoming something only the wealthy people can afford. To address all these issues, the Korean government has been rolling out various birth encouragement policies, and to tackle down the extreme population concentration in the capital area, they have also taken some structural steps too. For example, several major government agencies have been relocated to other parts of Korea, like Sejong City. This city was specially developed to decentralize administrative power from Seoul. In addition, the government has been encouraging companies to move their headquarters or key departments outside of the capital area in hoping of creating more opportunities and more balanced development across the country. But so far, we haven't seen any dramatic outcomes. A low birth rate issue threatened the entire foundation of Korea's future, economically and socially. South Korea's economic growth has always come from its people, its human capital. A shrinking working population means less tax revenue, and more urgently, it puts the national pension system at risk of collapse. That's why Korea is now exploring solutions like 4.5 workdays a week, expanding immigration, or redesigning social structures altogether. But here's the thing. If there is one thing we know from Korea's 5,000 years history, it is that this country has never backed down from a challenge. Korean people have always found a way forward and got stronger every time. As someone who deeply loves Korea, my country, I truly hope that we as a Korean can work together to find a way through this issue too. And even after 100 years from now, I hope Korea still be a country that interests the world. Thank you for listening, and I'll be back next time with another topic about life in Korea. Take care and see you soon.